Page 34. Better Never to Have Been, The Harm of Coming into Existence, by David Benatar, 2006. Chapter 2. Why Coming into Existence is Always a Harm. 2.2. Lives Worth Living and Lives Not Worth Living. There is a common distinction, in the literature about this problem, between impairments that make a life not worth living and impairments that, although severe, are not so bad as to make life not worth living. Some have made the strong claim that even where impairments make a life not worth living, we cannot claim that those people whose existence is inseparable from such impairments are harmed by being brought into existence. In support of this, the following sort of argument is advanced. 1. For something to harm somebody, it must make that person worse off. In this formulation, I gloss over the issue of what it must make the person worse off than. This is because it does not make any difference, in the context of this argument, whether we say A worse off than he was or A worse off than he would have been. For more on problems with each of these views see, Feinberg, Joel, A Wrongful Life and the Counterfactual Element in Harming and Freedom and Fulfilment, Princeton University Press, 1992, 3A36. 2. The A worse off relation is a relation between two states. 3. Thus, for somebody to be worse off in some state, such as existence, the alternative state, with which it is compared, must be one in which he is less badly, or better, off. 4. But non-existence is not a state in which anybody can be, and thus cannot be compared with existence. 5. Thus coming into existence cannot be worse than never coming into existence. 6. Therefore, coming into existence cannot be a harm. One way of responding to this argument is to deny the first premise's claim that for something to harm somebody it must, that is, always, make that person worse off. For something to harm somebody, it might be sufficient that it be bad for that person on condition that the alternative would not have been bad. On this view of harm, coming into existence can be a harm. If a life is bad for the person brought into existence, as it must be if the life is not worth living, then that person's coming into existence is a harm, given that the alternative would not have been bad. Derek Parfit makes a similar move, suggested to him by Jeff McMahon, but with reference to a better rather than a worse, in his argument that causing somebody to exist could benefit that person. Professor Parfit says that we may admit. Causing someone to exist cannot be better for this person. But it may be good for this person. Reasons and Persons, 489, this qualification avoids the complications, for a comparative view of harm, posed by those cases such as the following: you are trapped in a burning car and the only way I can save your life is by cutting off your hand and releasing you. Being handless is surely bad for you, but, all things being equal, I have nonetheless benefited you. And if I have benefited you then I have not harmed you, all things considered. Joel Feinberg offers a different response to the argument that coming into existence can never be a harm. Instead of denying that to harm is to make somebody worse off, he disputes the assumption that to be worse off in a particular condition, it must be the case that one would have existed in the alternative condition with which it is compared. What we mean when we say that somebody would have been better off not having come into existence is that non-existence would have been preferable. Professor Feinberg offers the analogy of judgments about ceasing to exist. When a person claims that his life is so bad that he would be better off dead, he need not mean literally that were he to die he would exist in some better state, although some people do believe this. Instead he may mean that he prefers not to be, rather than to continue living in his condition. He has determined that his life is not worth living and that it is not worth continuing to be. Just as life can be so bad that ceasing to exist is preferable, so life can be so bad that never coming into existence is preferable. Comparing somebody's existence with his non-existence is not to compare two possible conditions of that person. Rather, it is to compare his existence with an alternative state of affairs in which he does not exist. It has generally been thought that those cases where the impairment, although severe, is not so bad as to make life not worth living are more difficult than cases where the impairment is so great as to make life not worth living. It has been said that because the former, by definition, are cases of lives worth living, one cannot judge never existing to be preferable to existing with such a life. The force of this argument, however, rests on a crucial ambiguity in the expression "a life worth living," an ambiguity I shall now probe. Page 35.